what is your real belief in the spiritual beginnings of all of this? In other words, I've read many places that many scientists such as yourself are either agnostic or atheistic in their beliefs about the initial beginnings of the universe. And secondly, my brother-in-law is a highly classified person that works for the Air Force. The question revolves around what your belief is in UFOs. He's told me some things that I can't repeat about the Roswell incident. Perhaps you could give us your thoughts on that.
Let's start with the last one first.
Sure.
Okay, Dr.
Okay, but I don't want to duck the first one.
Okay, we'll get...
Well, in 1947, in near Roswell, New Mexico, stuff came down on a ranch. And the stuff was then picked up by Air Force personnel. People apparently were told to keep quiet about it. And over the years, the story has emerged that these were parts of a crashed alien spacecraft and that little alien bodies were shipped to an Air Force base in Ohio, and that they're still languishing in freezers with their perfect teeth. The actual fact seems to be that, as the Air Force announced very belatedly just a couple of years ago, that this was a balloon at tropopause altitudes, that is just where the stratosphere begins, with acoustic instruments designed to detect Soviet nuclear weapons explosions from halfway around the world. There is an acoustic channel at the tropopause by which you might be able to hear such explosions. And this was a matter of the highest concern for the security of the United States and was properly classified. Newspaper photographs at the time show flimsy polyethylene-like material and balsa wood, hardly consistent with the spacecraft of an alien advanced civilization, but perfectly consistent with balloons. I think that there are two museums of UFOs in Roswell, New Mexico. You can make money, you can get your name in the paper, you can have a break from the humdrum day by inventing stories about Roswell, New Mexico. I don't know what your brother has told you, but I would treat it with a real grain of salt.
Does that mean you don't believe in UFOs?
Well, what do we mean by believe, which in fact takes us to the first question. So what do we mean by believe? If the evidence is compelling, then we believe. If the evidence is not compelling, we don't believe. We withhold judgment. And UFOs merely is an abbreviation for unidentified flying objects. If we see something in the sky we don't know what it is, to my mind, that's it. We don't know what it is. It does not automatically follow that it's spacecraft from somewhere else. The vast majority of UFO reports have quite prosaic explanations. It's partly people seeing natural phenomena in the sky with which they're unfamiliar, including cases of astronomers doing that. Sometimes conscious hoaxes. Sometimes people with who hallucinate, and 25% of all people hallucinate. So there are many other explanations, and only if you've been able to eliminate all of those explanations would you give serious consideration to the possibility that we're being visited. Nobody's more interested than me in the possibility of the existence of extraterrestrial life. I've been involved in sending spacecraft to other planets to look for it. I've been involved in using large radio telescopes to listen for signals from civilizations on planets of other stars. It would save me so much effort if the aliens were here, even if they are short, dour, and sexually obsessed, as the alien abductees, so-called, claim.
And before we lose time this half hour, part one of his question about your personal beliefs.
Okay, well, I treat the existence of God and the perhaps creation of the universe in exactly the same way. what is the evidence? Now, the word God is used to cover a wide variety of very different ideas, ranging maybe from the idea of an outsized, light-skinned male with a long white beard who sits in a throne in the sky and tallies the fall of every sparrow, for which there is no evidence, none at all, to the view of Einstein and Spinoza, which is essentially that God is the sum total of the laws of nature. And since there are laws of nature, and since remarkably the same laws hold throughout this magnificent and vast universe, if that's what you mean by God, then of course there's a God. So everything depends on the definition of God. One last point, you ask about the origin of the universe, but that's assuming the issue in question, namely that there was an origin of the universe. And in some cosmological models, the universe is infinitely old, therefore uncreated, therefore there's nothing for a creator to do. So I think these are very deep and difficult issues in which both theologians and scientists ought to bear in mind their own limitations before the difficulties of these issues.
We're going to take a short break and come back and continue our conversation with